Good morning, everybody. I'm Love Coach Scott Katamas, and it is our Sacred Sunday show. And we have a really wonderful, wonderful guest, one of our absolute favorite musicians from Saturday Night Alive, Daniel Bellone, is our special guest tonight. And he's coming to us all the way from Argentina. That's pretty cool. So we're going to hear a little bit about what life is like in Argentina. And especially Daniel is such an incredible musical force. And he's going to share with us some of his sacred mantras and talk about Sanskrit and the power of that ancient language, Sanskrit, really one of the oldest languages that has been on our planet. The ancient Vedic scriptures were written in Sanskrit. And so we're going to learn all about that. So welcome, Daniel.
Thank you so much, Scott. I'm so happy to be here. I admire you very much. Your shows have inspired so many people around the world, and having this opportunity to share my path with you and with the audience, it's a blessing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And, I also want to acknowledge you as one of the co-producers of the Festival of Light, which was a beautiful online festival. And I really appreciated that you made sure that Spanish-speaking people were really included. You made sure that there were Spanish-speaking programs and interpreters. And so Diana Maxwell, of course, works with us. And so I really appreciate the work that you and Diana did on that festival. That was very beautiful.
Thank you so much. I believe there's a huge audience in Latin America. They're very thirsty about spirituality. They need a spiritual vision in their life. And there's so much wealth of spirituality in the North, in North America and around the world. And we wanted to bring this to the Latin American culture. And we have more than 20,000 people connected online at the same time, which was spectacular for us. And most of them were from Latin American countries. So they got all this inspiration and wealth of information and connected with speakers from all over the world. It was amazing.
Wow. It was really powerful, really very, very powerful. I was proud to be a part of that and really loved what you guys did in reaching out. And so speaking of that, I want to acknowledge all the people in our Zoom room. A lot of our friends, I see Barbara, Bonnie, Dia twice, Eileen, Kim, Lauren, Matthew, Parjani, Penny, Wilma, and everybody watching on Facebook. And I actually want to acknowledge the majority of the people who watch this show watch the replay. So if you're watching the replay, welcome. Daniel, I didn't even ask you this, but usually I start my Sacred Sunday show with a meditation. However, since you're with us, I would love if you'd be willing to start with perhaps if you'd be willing to do a mantra for us to kind of drop in. Would you be willing to do that for us?
Sure, I would love that. And usually in India, it's been said for thousands of years that a ritual or a ceremony is not started until you invoke the presence of Ganesha.
I love Ganesha. He's my favorite. I love Ganesha.
So he makes sure we do is the right place and we receive all the blessings that are here for us during this show. So in that tone, I would like to share with you this special mantra that is a combination of the root mantra for Ganesha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, and Ganesha Sharanam, that is a salutation to Lord Ganesh. Ganesha Sharanam, Sharanam Ganesha, Ganesha Sharanam, Ganesha Sharanam, Sharanam Ganesha, Ganesha Sharanam. Ganesha Sharanam, Sharanam Ganesha, Ganesha Sharanam. Ganesha Sharanam Sharanam Ganesha Ganesha Sharanam Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Gam Ganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Gam Ganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Gam Ganapataye Namaha Gam Ganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Gam Ganapataye Namaha Gam Ganapataye Namaha Ganesha Sharanam Sharanam Ganesha Ganesha Sharanam 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 Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Gam Ganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Gam Ganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Gam Ganapataye Namaha Gam Ganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Gam Ganapataye Namaha Gam Ganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha
I can barely speak. So beautiful. So share with us a little bit about what that just was. Like, what is a mantra? What is its roots and its history? I love Ganesha, so I'd love to hear your perspective of Ganesha, and then I'll tell a Ganesha story.
Well, it's very interesting. Ganesha is the leader of Ganas. And Ganas is basically everything that is alive, from the plants to the insects, to the animals, to the human beings, and even divine beings. So Ganesha is considered the ruler of all living beings. He's the head of the clan. He's extremely powerful, but at the same time, he's the son of Shiva, which is the great yogi, the great father of illumination and enlightenment. So Ganesha is like, in a way, Jesus in Christianity, because Jesus leads us to the Father that is somehow abstract and a little bit harder to reach, but through Jesus is easier to connect because he's a human being. He's an interface for humans. So Ganesha at the same time is the ruler of the first chakra, Muladhara, where the spiritual journey begins. Because once the spiritual energy of Kundalini, according to the Indian mythology, there's a spiritual energy residing in our first chakra, basically in the perineum area, and Ganesha is the ruler of that chakra. So through chanting and by mantra and other practices like breath work, you can activate this energy, and as it goes up, all our spiritual potential awakens. So that's when you start having divine vision, or you're able to connect with intuition, the third eye opens, the heart chakra flowers. And mantra is connected to that because the throat chakra, or the Vishuddha Chakra, actually means the great purification. Vishuddha means purification. And what are we purifying? Basically, we are purifying the mind, because the mind of a baby is so pure and so beautiful and bright and luminous. But as we go through life experiences, we are unable to complete painful experiences because the nature of the mind is to escape from whatever is not pleasant. So the remaining energies or emotional charges that are not completed as we go through life remain in the unconscious mind. And these are the blocks that separate us from God consciousness. So Ganesha is basically shaking all these unconscious charges, basically bringing them to the front so that you can actually complete them. The only way to complete them is to go through them and to experience whatever charge is left there. And once that happens, forgiveness happens, release of hurt. If you have a low self-esteem, your perception of life changes about yourself, how you perceive yourself. And with that, your destiny, because if you feel different, you will act differently.
Beautiful. So I want to share a couple stories about my relationship with Ganesha. In 1996, I was I'd gone away to a cabin with my girlfriend, and it was our first, we were just started dating, and we ended up being in a relationship for many, many years, but it was our first kind of go away time, and we were in a cabin up in the mountains. And there was she had brought a batik, a large batik of Ganesha, which she hung up on the wall. And that night, very late at night, she'd fallen asleep. I was kind of half awake, half asleep. And I swear to you, and I've never had this experience in my life, Ganesha came off the batik and danced around the living room. And literally imagine, and Ganesha, of course, is an elephant. I don't, for anybody who doesn't know, he's an elephant. And literally, I watched this elephant and I remember his trunk was going up and he was just delightfully dancing. And I've never, ever had an experience like that before or after. But it was like, oh my God, Ganesha is real. Ganesha is truly a real being that can manifest in magical ways. So I've always, since then, of course, I always had, Ganeshas on my altar and such. And when my wife and I, now this is fast forward many, many years later, because that happened in 1996, my wife and I bought the house that I'm in right now. And we moved in 2011, so 10 years ago. The very first thing we brought into our house was we got this beautiful bronze sculpture of Ganesha. And that was the first thing we brought into this house. We placed it where it still is right now on my altar, and we built our entire altar around it. So this house, definitely, like you said, always start with Ganesha, always start with Ganesha. So that's my personal relationship with Ganesha. So thank you.
It's so curious because Ganesha is there in the Roman culture as the god Janus. They would always pray to that god before starting anything else. It is there in Buddhism, which many times is different to Hinduism, and it is there in China, in their culture. It's unbelievable how much Ganesha is present in all these different religions or spirituality. It's all over the place. Ganesha seems to be the common denominator for humanity.
Yeah, and he's there's something very delightful about Ganesha. Some of the archetypes in spiritual pantheons are serious and heavy and scary, and Ganesha is just this beautiful, loving elephant god. There's something very safe and warm and inviting about Ganesha.
It's curious what you're saying, because in Vedic culture, their concept of the divine or the relationship that humans have with God is more of a friendship, not so much of the classic way how we perceive the relationship between God and man in Christianity or in other religions, where it's a little bit more formal and there are prescribed prayers, or it's there's a lot of do's and don'ts. In the Vedic culture, actually, God is your friend, and God is there, first of all, not to solve your problems or to give you and grant you your desires, but mostly to play with you, to eat with you, to spend time with you, to be your friend and be part of your life like a family member. And Ganesha has that quality that you feel is your brother or your friend, and you can be so informal and so authentic, which makes it so special.
That's an interesting point. Of course, I was raised in the Christian tradition. And if you take a look at Judaism and Christianity, the early concept of God was Jehovah, who was an angry God. Jehovah got pissed all the time, and he would, and then kind of in the landscape, in the kind of timeline, then Jesus came along, and of course was, again, like you're describing, was much more compassionate, much more loving. So there was like that evolution from the angry Jehovah to the loving, compassionate Jesus. And now it brings us to where we are today as we move into the Aquarian age, and we recognize we don't need an intermediary to access the divine, that actually we are the divine, that we're not separate from the divine, but actually we are the divine. So it's like, that's part of human evolution in consciousness, from an angry God to, okay, well, God could be my friend, to, oh my God, I am God.
That's beautiful. And that evolution of how we perceive God is what actually defined God in different ages. Because in the Middle Ages, for example, we used to have an idea that God was very strict and there were rules, do's and don'ts. And if you were not following the rules, you were burnt in the fire and you were a witch, or, And as we go along and we are evolving in consciousness, our perception of God changes. And it's interesting, there's a concept in the Vedic world that says that God is Bhakta Paradina. Bhakta means devotee, and Paradina means that God behaves according to the devotee's perception of God. So now that we are perceiving God in this way, that we are one with Him, we are a part of Him, that's how God is expressing through this age. We are starting to have mystical experiences more often. We are more connected to our intuition. We feel beyond the five senses, and all the things are starting to become more and more common. With my partner, I'm able to see what she's thinking even before she speaks out. And we are having conversations that never happened outside. They are all happening inside and responding. It's so interesting what's unfolding.
It's beautiful. All right, well, so now this is kind of where on Sacred Sunday show, when I have a special guest like you, it's where our audience gets to know everything they've always wanted to know about Daniel and beyond. So Daniel, tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey, your journey of awakening. Yeah.
Well, it all started when I was around 18 years old. I had this urge to go to Europe and seek for my roots. I'm an Italian descendant, second generation, so I wanted to go back to Italy to get my citizenship. But when I got there, after gathering all the paperwork, the commune in Italy, in a small town in the north of Italy, they told me, well, you need another stamp from your embassy back in Argentina. And at that time I was like, okay, this is not going to happen. And in that frustration, I decided to have a completely change of course in my journey there in Europe. And I went to Egypt. Like literally 5 hours later from that moment, I was landing in Cairo. And I didn't know why I was doing that, but I went through all the temples from south to north, ending in the Great Pyramids. And that's the first time in my life where I started hearing the voice of consciousness. It was a physical experience, and I never had that before. I was not looking for that, and I had no idea or concept about spirituality. In Argentina, we have a very flexible relationship with religion. So even though my parents are Christians, they never forced me to go to church or, to study religion whatsoever. So for me, it was a totally fresh experience and discovery. So that led me into a new path in my life where I felt like university and following the mandates from society was not going to make it for me because it was too predictable and in a way not exciting. So I decided to explore life with the risks of not knowing where to go, basically, at the age of 18. So for 5 years, I pursued a career in acting here in Argentina, and it didn't go very well, honestly. I was not fulfilling my dreams and my goals. So in that feeling of frustration, seeing everyone around me starting to earn money and creating their families and fulfilling their dreams, I was stuck. So one of my good friends invited me to a sweating lodge ceremony. She said, well, you're going through so much right now. This might be actually a healing process for you. And I say, why not? At this point, whatever makes me feel a little better, I think is a great thing. And I went to this sweating lodge ceremony, and the leader of the ceremony commenced the whole experience with a chant. I never heard a mantra before, but he started chanting in Sanskrit. We were in a circle around the fire, and I have a mystical experience for the first time. I see the door of a temple in 3 dimensions opening in front of my heart. And I feel like, what is going on here? Like, it was a Saturday 9 a.m. experience. I only had some water in the morning, so there was nothing there that could have created an illusion. It was pretty much happening naturally, and it was mind-blowing for me. It was the first time that I realized there's so much more that I can see in my life. And after that, I realized that mantras were so powerful, even though I didn't know anything about them or what they were or that language. But I knew that they worked, because if they could produce that in myself, there was a power to them. And that's how I started getting closer and closer to this mentor who became my mentor for a couple of years. And he introduced me to the culture of India and the Vedas. Then I follow up 11 years almost living in India and living in an ashram alongside with Vedic monks. They were performing all sorts of pujas, Vedic fire ceremonies, and chanting was the main drive for people all over the world. There were groups from 30, 40 countries there. They were having mystical experiences in masses. I would see people just, turn into that trance state, and we would be taking them out like in wheelchairs, basically, from the fire ceremonies, because they couldn't walk. Their kundalini would awaken so powerfully that they would be shaking and experiencing aspects of the cosmos and of their lives and of reality that were not accessible to them before. So slowly but surely, I started learning the mantras, and I still feel like Sanskrit and this Vedic path will take my whole life to, and not even, maybe this is a many lives deal, where to learn them, there's so much to learn, And that's what drove me into studying the Vedas, studying mantras, studying with these monks, learning the pronunciation. And I noticed one thing along the path, that whenever I would hear a mantra, I will never forget it. I will remember the whole sequence, even though some mantras are 8 verses long, they are super complex mantras, but I would forget a Spanish song, but I would never forget a Sanskrit mantra. So I realized, okay, there's something about these mantras that is clicking with my dharma, with my spiritual path. So I should pursue this learning and also started sharing with the world. And that's when I started touring around the world for 5 years. I did more than 400 mantra concerts all over Europe, Asia, Latin America, and North America. And well, after that, the pandemic hit, so things changed a little bit. I moved more to the studio and tried to bring this chants in a digital form for people to be able to get the benefit without coming to a live presentation.
What a beautiful journey you've been on. Just, it's always fascinating to me, our life's journey, and where we start and all that we experience and where we finish. I'm probably a little closer to the finish line than you are, my friend. But it's an amazing journey of life. Something that I've experienced, because I think we've worked together now 4 or 5 times. And my experience of you is that you are consistently elevated. You're consistently, and so I'm just going to ask, are you always like this? Like, have you reached that state of consciousness? And the twin rays, Shakina and Sananda, who I've been working with a lot lately, they also, I just spent a week living with them. They're always in this state of presence, and I've observed that with you. And or are there human times where you're depressed or discouraged or angry, or are you always in this kind of state that I experienced you in?
No, absolutely not. I'm a normal human being and I go through everything that everyone else goes through. I have my own fears, I have my own challenges, but the only thing that I can say is that I have a way out into the divine realm. I know when I start chanting, that's when this physical world ends and the divine realm is available for me. So I always have a way into that space of consciousness. That doesn't mean that I live there 24/7.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. In fact, maybe take a specific example in your life of when something very difficult was happening. And you recognize that you went through anger or fear or whatever it was, and then your practice, your process of shifting. Tell us a story that's true of how you've done that.
I learned something very important fairly early in my journey, and that was that if you want to get the benefit of your spiritual practice, be dedicated, be disciplined, and do it over and over again. But if you really want to have a leap in consciousness and move into the higher experience of what spirituality has to offer, you need to serve. Because only through seva, only through giving what you have, you will get 10 times more or 100 times more. And I used to hear this teaching from my guru. He said there was a very famous flute player who went to visit his guru. There was a great Indian master who had millions of followers. And in the conversation, the flutist asked the guru, "Master, how many years have you been practicing meditation?" And the teacher said, "Well, about 30 years. And he said, 30 years? I've spent 30 years in my own practice and I haven't reached nearly halfway through where you are. How did you make it happen? What is the difference between you and me?" And he said, "Well, in the last 29 years, my whole focus was in serving others. I only spent 1 year meditating for myself, whereas the flutist was meditating for those 30 years, trying to achieve that enlightenment just by himself, without connection with others." So that was a big insight for me. I realized, okay, if I really want to start moving faster and higher, I need to start giving what I have, no matter how much you have. It could be a little in the beginning, but as you share it, whatever you have grows exponentially. And I think that was the big breakthrough in my life and what took me from dreaming about having a spiritual life and performing around the world to actually having the real experience of it.
It's beautiful. That reminds me of a couple of stories. First off, My mentor was Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of Nonviolent Communication. Traveling and teaching, being part of his teaching and doing videos, I produced a series of videos with him, changed my life. And Marshall, my favorite quote from Marshall, and I share it all the time, is the greatest joy in life is contributing to the well-being of others. And what I've learned since first hearing that quote is that people such as yourself who are blessed to know that are the happiest. And the most unhappy people are the people who tragically haven't learned that. They haven't learned the joy of contributing to others. So they're still looking to the outside world. And of course, it's a bottomless pit. You can never consume enough. The external world can never fulfill in the way that being of service can fulfill. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I realized that there is no life purpose. Really, you create your own purpose to life. You need to live for something, because in itself, life has no purpose. And you realize that fairly on in the game, because whatever you achieve very soon becomes meaningless. It could be money, it could be fame, it could be any kind of success. Once you get it, it's like, well, what's next, right? So if there's no purpose to life, I need to create my own purpose. And serving others is something that will help you expand yourself, because we are self-centered by nature, and there's a reason for that, because we need to survive, we need to thrive in life. But when you start putting your attention in the other, you're other-centered, what happens is that sense of self expands. It's like when you're having a family, now your child is more important than yourself. And that movement from self-centeredness to other-centeredness is the beginning of the journey. And as you embrace more and more and more of humanity and nature and animals, and you start expanding yourself, and that's the journey of enlightenment. Enlightenment is not the annihilation of the self, but rather the expansion of the self, where you become the cosmic self. That's why there's, for me, the ultimate mantra is called Purusha Shuktam. Purusha means the nature of the cosmic self. So that mantra is a super long stotram. It has I think more than 30 or 40 verses. And it describes the nature of the cosmic self. What is this one huge being that embraces all nature and all cosmos? And so through the serving of others, through seva, this is a concept in Sanskrit which means the highest state of consciousness, where the other becomes more important than yourself. You exercise your true nature. And you can make that into your sadhana, your spiritual practice, until you finally become one with it. And that's the journey of Jesus. In the beginning, he was saying, "My Father in heaven." And then what did Jesus say? He said, "My Father and I are one." So he expanded through his service in the world until he became the cosmic self.
Beautiful. Gosh, there's so many things I want to share. And in a moment, I want to have you do another mantra. But, just again, mentioning Jesus, that's why, to me, one of the most important quotes was, "I am the way, the truth, the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me." And of course, he was not referencing an organization formed hundreds of years later. He was referring to the Christ consciousness, which he had attained. His name was not Jesus Christ. His name was Jesus of Nazareth, who attained Christ consciousness, which is available to all of us. And the second coming has already happened thousands, maybe millions of times for individuals as they've attained that Christ consciousness. Now, bringing it to mantras, my understanding is one of the reasons that in a mantra you repeat it over and over and over is it's raising your vibration. Each mantra has a signature, has a vibration, and through repetition, you become one with that signature, one with that vibration. Would that be accurate?
Well, Nikola Tesla said it very well. If you want to know the mysteries of this universe, think in terms of sound, vibration, and frequency. So in the beginning was the word. these are the first syllables of the Bible, the first line of the Bible. Everything starts there. So basically, the vibration of the word creates patterns of energy. Everything is a pattern in this universe. Planets are following patterns, nature is following patterns, our body chemistry has all sorts of patterns, our thinking process is a pattern. So, how can we induce auspicious, positive patterns that are aligned with the principles of nature? Mantra basically creates an organization of subtle energy in the beginning, a pattern of energy that builds up into physical realities that are in line with heaven. To put it in simple words, because they are in line with emotions of happiness, joy, community and connection, peace, inner peace, sensitivity. We need to become more sensitive to the world, even though we see so much going on around us and we try to shut down to not get affected. It's only through sensitivity that we will break through this disconnection that we have among each other. So it's very important to create the right kind of patterns within ourselves, because if a negative pattern is ruining your life, you cannot have successful relationships, or you cannot experience love, or you might be struggling financially for the rest of your life. So we need to break those patterns and create patterns that are aligned with nature. And nature by itself is abundant. Everyone has a place in this creation that is godly given. So if you are in alignment with who you are, with your true nature, you wouldn't be worried about success or about finances, not even health, because you only occupy the place that God has given you according to His plan for you. And it's so beautiful and liberating and joyful that is so easy. That's why it is said that in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, you need to become like a child.
Yes. Yes. There's everything you say. When I respond to this, respond to that, but talking about being like a child as a relationship coach, I'm always emphasizing curiosity. It's like if we are in our cynical, judgmental mind, it feels horrible, and we can get lost there in cynical judgment. Why would you do that? Why would you, But if we could have that childlike wonder of, wow, it's like the difference between why did you do that versus, wow, why do you do that? Right? It's like learning to shift into curiosity. And in terms of Matthew Baker just wrote, curiosity is king or queen. Absolutely. Somebody gave me a book, and it was interviews with couples that had been happily married for over 40 years. And every single one, it's like you'd read their key. It was all about curiosity. After 40 years, 50 years, I'm still fascinated by her. I'm still curious by him. We still have fascinating conversations with each other. So it's so important to learn to be curious. Absolutely. Absolutely. One other story that I thought of, when you talk about mastering something, and I love that, mastering through service, there's another thing that always made an impression on me about how long it takes to master something. Akira Kurosawa is generally regarded as Japan's greatest filmmaker. And maybe 15 years ago, he was, 80 years old, and the Academy, they give out the Academy Awards, decided to honor him on Oscar night. George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were who gave him the Oscar, and they talked about how their great movies were inspired by his movies. So here is this man, 80 years old, Akira Kurosawa, receiving an honorary Oscar, being adulated, being honored by the world on the world stage. And he very humbly says, to be really truthful, after making movies for 50 years, I really believe I'm just beginning to learn how to do this. Right? And it was like, here I am telling you the story 15 years ago later, because it was just like such a profound awareness that when you have that desire to master something, You're always curious. You're still learning. You never stop learning. You never stop the curiosity. So anyway, that's why I love what you said about curiosity, because it's so important.
I have this feeling like we'll never get there, no matter how much we try, no matter how much we perfect ourselves. It's like we need to discover joy in the journey, because it's not about arriving at a place where you finally got the trophy and you're like, yes, now I'm the master. We'll never get there. It's the journey what matters. It's every single step. It's right now what matters. And I think shifting that focus, because the mind is objective oriented. It's always oriented to become something. And somehow, to keep you engaged, you need to feel like you're moving towards that direction, and the reward is going to come at the end. If you want to win an Oscar, once you are grabbing that little statue, you will feel like, yes, I made it. But what about all those steps that you had to take to get there? If you are not able to enjoy them, you won't be able to enjoy the Oscar, because we are a cycle, we are a pattern. And whatever we reinforce in our lives, if I'm frustrated for 30 years because I haven't got the Oscar and finally I get it, how do we know that I'm going to be able chemically within my body to enjoy it? I might lost the ability to experience joy in my life. But if I enjoy every step of the way, even if I don't get the Oscar, I already have the reward.
And there's a wonderful quote: the joy is in the journey, not in the destination. Absolutely. And we have to remember that. And even when we're in a journey of life that's challenging, not to stuff our uncomfortable feelings, to acknowledge fear, anger, sadness, whatever those uncomfortable feelings are, to acknowledge them. But it's also part of the journey of life. The death of my wife really taught me that. The word that I've really learned is bittersweet. I still miss her terribly. And that I miss her is bitter. And that I miss her so much is also sweet, because the love is still there. The longing for connection is still there. The memory of what we've shared is still there. And so both are present. It's bitter that she's gone, and it's sweet that I still miss her. And so it's helped me to understand how we can embrace those challenging times, because if we totally feel our feelings, there is that is passion, right? Passion is compassion is with passion, sharing the feelings, sharing in the suffering, sharing in the depth of emotion, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable.
Yes, this is a great point, Scott, because I remember one of the core teachings in my Vedic path was that anything and everything experienced completely ends in joy. And our teacher, we were in a meditation hall, we were 300 people taking that class, and this monk was there, and he said, okay guys, now you should all go outside into the garden in the middle of rural India, imagine, and he said, you need to find an ant and allow the ant to beat you. And don't try to get away from the pain. Experience the pain completely. And we were like, oh my God, this is crazy. And we did it. We went out in the middle of the night trying to find ants. And once I got this little bite, in the beginning, I felt like spicy. It was like fire happening around the area. And then it became hot. And then it became cold. And then I wanted to scratch. But I went through all the experience without trying to resist it, just experiencing fully. And at the end of the whole thing, I started laughing and saying, this was great, we should do it again. Who says that, having an ant bite you is something bad? It's beautiful and wonderful.
That's a great example. That's a really great story. Could we have another mantra?
Yes, I would love to.
And
So
by the
this
way,
is the mantra.
I want to acknowledge everybody in our chat room and thank you for your comments. Thank you, Matthew and Nancy and everybody who's with us, and Lauren. and definitely continue to share with us. I'm enjoying what you're writing. And my gosh, it's so beautiful having Daniel with us. So, excuse me.
Bless you. This is a mantra for Lord Narayana. And Narayana is one of the representations of Dharma. There are three main forces in Hinduism. One is the creator, one is the preserver, and one is the destroyer or the transformer. I like to call Shiva more the transformer because nothing is ever destroyed, it's only transformed into something else. But we are looking into the preserver, and that's another great question. What is it being preserved through humanity, through the ages, that is valuable to us, that is golden to us? And that is the force of Dharma. So it's been said that all great masters are coming from this lineage. Even Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, and Rama, and so many other masters. They are all descendants of Vishnu, which is another name for Narayana. So this mantra is an invocation to Lord Narayana and Lakshmi, his consort. And the beautiful thing about Lakshmi is that everyone in the world is looking for abundance and prosperity. But the only way you can find the goddess is if you go to the feet of Lord Vishnu. That's where she's always sitting next to her beloved, massaging his feet. And the message behind that story is that wealth follows divine connection. That's why Jesus was saying, seek for the kingdom of heaven and everything will be given to you automatically. Even wealth, even the things of this world come through that connection. So with that spirit, I would like to invoke Lord Narayana and Lakshmi so that we can all have a deeper connection with God and get everything that we are seeking in our lives.
Vasudevaya.
Such a beautiful vibration you bring us into. So beautiful. You have such a beautiful, there's something about your voice, Daniel, that's very comforting. Just like, ah. It's hard to talk afterwards. Every time I hear you sing, it's hard to talk. Matthew Baker just wrote, "The mantra made me cry." And Nancy is also crying. So Nancy, Wilma, Matthew are all expressing in the chat box that the mantras brought forth tears.
Thank you so much. You know, it's interesting that I never thought about singing mantra. I think this was part of my destiny in a way, because throughout my spiritual journey, I was trying to convey with words what I was feeling inside. And I remember calling my school friends and saying, you know, I'm feeling this crazy love in my heart. I'm feeling this joy for no reason. And people would look at me and say, like, okay, yeah, I think I get what you're saying, but not really, you know, not quite. And I couldn't express what I was having inside of me up until I started singing. It's only through the chants and the mantras that I could express my inner feelings. And that was a liberation for me, because we have a need of expression. We need to bring out into the world what is happening in our inner world. And for me, mantra has been this bridge and this vessel. And at the same time, I realized that people who were listening to what I had to express were moving into the same state. So it's so beautiful for me to hear your words and what people are sharing in the chat, because that means that our hearts are connected right now.
Beautiful. It's true. Music, of course, is the universal language. And, you know, for Wilma and Nancy and Matthew and anybody else who cried, whenever tears come, first of all, let's not stuff them. Most of the time, tears come and we stuff them because we've been taught don't cry. And then always check in. What do those tears have to say? Our tears always are informing us. When we feel the impulse to cry, when we feel that urge to weep, it's because our heart has been touched. Something important got triggered, got stimulated. And rather than stuffing it, that's kind of like the ant story, actually. It's, you know, as they're repressing and stuffing it, dive deep in what do those tears have to say? What is it that was touched my heart? What was it that I'm longing for? Longing to experience or express or be understood, that those tears are helping me to drop into and understand.
This is so beautiful, Scott, because it makes me remember of an experience that I had in China. I was living in Beijing and Shanghai for 5 years and doing lots of mantra concerts in a country that was not really exposed to spirituality much. And I remember a Chinese in one of the concerts came to me. She was crying, she was bawling, and she said, like, why am I crying? What is happening to me? And I said, well, you know, human expression is really limited. We can jump, we can smile, we can cry, but there's not much more, you know, it's like a couple of few expressions and that's pretty much everything we do. And sometimes we cry when we are sad, but even less often we cry when we are happy. And what is happening to you is you're feeling happy, you're feeling, you're connected with a feeling that the only way you can express it is through tears. And she never had that experience before. And she thought that crying was always connected to something sad. So when she realized, oh my God, crying could also be a beautiful expression of being moved inside, she was liberated. She was like, okay, then it's all good. And said, obviously it's all perfect, you know?
Oh, beautiful. You know, I want to read some of the comments that are coming in. There's some really beautiful comments coming in. Matthew writes, sorrow and sadness often carries a message, some wisdom that something has touched us and we need healing. Maybe something in our life may need changing. You know? And Wilma writes, I feel like crying more now. Thank you for that. Matthew continues, when we feel the touch of connection that can illuminate an emptiness that we feel inside. Very, very beautiful. Daniel, in front of everybody, I'm going to ask you, next week's Saturday Night Alive, we have these incredible couple, the Twin Rays, that are very advanced in their spiritual understanding. I just spent a week with them and they're really beautiful. So we decided to build a show all about the next generation of spiritual teachers and luminaries. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because in my world, you are a big part of the next generation, your consciousness and the way you carry yourself. But then, of course, we couldn't reach each other. You were traveling to Argentina. So while you've been playing, I really am wondering if you would be willing to still be on the show. And what I would like to do is have you do our opening song, the opening chant to Ganesha, and then have you do our after show. And more, we've been doing, our after show has been music. Last night's after show was Andrea Brooke, the Sonic Butterfly. 2 weeks ago, our after show was this Grammy Award-winning band, Opium Moon. So more, we're going into the after shows being beautiful music where we can wind down and drop in. So would you still be available next Saturday night?
Oh, yes, I'm going to be there. It's an honor. Thank you so much for the invitation. I really wanted to be part of that show. When you told me yesterday, oh, I couldn't reach you, I was like, oh my God, I wish I could be part of that show. And now the miracle again is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as first when I heard the Ganesha, it was like, oh, we got to start the show with that. And then I realized the after show. We'll have the after show be you playing some of these beautiful mantras, which will be a wonderful way for us to integrate the experience of the show. Absolutely.
And I would also like to tell everyone here that I just released a new album on the 21st of September after 7 years in the studio. It's been my longest project by far. It has been really like a baby being born after so much work and production. It was the university for me in music production. I would say that, if you spend 5 years studying, I don't know, law or medicine, or for me, it was 7 years to make this project happen. And my pursuit was to bring mantras into mainstream music. My influence in music has been, in the beginning, world music, pop music, rock, electronica in the 2000s. And I wanted to bring all that together with the power of ancient Sanskrit chants. And I think it came out so beautifully. It's all there. So I invite all the audience.
Well, yeah, give me the website and let me pull it up. Is there a website, Daniel?
Yes, danielbellone.com.
Okay, I'm going to go there right now and tell us more about it while I go there and I'll pull it up.
So the name of the album is called Kamada in Sanskrit. And most of you might be familiar with the word Kama for Kama Sutra. Sutra means teaching and Kama means fulfillment. So Kamada is the aspect of the divine that fulfills our dharmic, heartfelt desires, because humanity evolves through fulfillment. If you are able to fulfill your dreams, very soon you will be free from the lower life and be connected more with Dharma or with the spiritual life. So there it is. Kamada is my new album release.
Gosh, wow. First of all, it's a beautiful website. Amazing pictures. And that's exactly what you do. Awakening through music. Mantra meets mainstream. Oh, Daniel, I haven't seen this. This is beautiful. I love that. Wow. Oh, Daniel, this is really, really special. And there you are with your beloved. I do remember seeing that before. You two are so beautiful together.
Yes, the theme song of the Festival of Light we produced together. She's rapping, and last week or a few days ago I was in Burning Man.
I didn't know you had a hung instrument.
I do, yes.
Wow, these are amazing instruments. They're very difficult to get. Usually there's about a 3 to 5 year waiting list. So that's beautiful that you have a hung.
Actually, in the album, I have 4 of the songs, or 3 of the songs are with hung.
Wow.
And I have a blog where
This is,
the philosophy behind.
I'm loving your website. It's beautifully designed. Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah. And these are all albums that we can purchase through your website.
Yeah, exactly. If you click on listen now, it will take you to another part of the website where there is all the music, and you can support me if you want to buy through Bandcamp, or if you want to hear it for free. It's available in all streaming platforms, Spotify, iTunes Music, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, you name it. You just type my name, Daniel Bellone, and I'm sure you're going to find Kamadas, my latest release.
So I really want to encourage everybody. It's so important for us to support our musical artists. And those of you that watch my shows, you hear me say this a lot. But the pandemic has been very difficult for musicians. Festivals, concerts, clubs and restaurants even were all shut down, closed. So many of the ways that our musical friends were able to generate income stopped. And then look at how generous he is. He's telling you all the ways you can get the music for free, but it's important for us to support. So I promise when the show's over, I'm going to go right in and I'm going to buy a couple of your albums. And it's really important for us to support our musical friends. So again, a reminder that where you're going to go to is, it's his name, Daniel Bellone, spelled Daniel, BELLONE.com, danielbellone.com. And let's buy some of his music. And so many amazing, wonderful things. I mean, the way you have brought together the Eastern influence with your European influence, it's just a very unique combination that you are.
Thank you so much. I think this is who I am, because I'm a Westerner who fell in love with Vedic culture, and here we are, marrying these two sides of the world.
Dia writes, I want to read a couple of more comments, and then maybe one last song, if that's okay. Dia writes, I could not open up enough to my tears because I was being soothed of my 9-hour deep hot head pain through this music. Thank you so much. So your music had a very healing experience for Dia. Wilma writes, thank you for this. One more blessed sacred Sunday. I loved learning about Ganesha today and I will never forget it. And Dia says the same. I have similar feelings to Scott about you, Daniel, and about Lord Ganesha. So just wanting you to know that your music and this experience is touching the lives. And a big welcome to all the people that are in our Zoom room. And it's wonderful. We've kind of a nice following, people that are coming week after week now, and it's really quite beautiful.
It's beautiful what you're doing, Scott. This is great because we need this. We need this in the world, and you're a great host, and you can bring resources and people together in such a way that, for me, it's always an honor to be part of whatever you do, because your presence, your same person, it's an example of that authenticity of who you are and what you want to bring forth into the world. So I'm very grateful to be here with you.
Thank you. Likewise. We have many collaborations ahead of us, my friend. Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. What are you going? How are we going to conclude? What do you got?
Yeah. So this chant for me is very special because my teachers told me that you cannot, there are two ways in which you can discover the divine. One way is you can choose the divine that you want to relate to, or the divine can choose which way wants to relate to you. And for me, that was a puzzle, because most of my life I was saying, okay, I want to relate to Ganesha, I want to relate to Krishna or to Jesus. But actually, when I went deep into my heart in my meditation and in my practice, I realized that my Lord, my God, was Shiva. And I was not pursuing that connection, but that connection was coming for me. And when I realized that my heart was wide open in that frequency, the devotional aspect when I sing these mantras is so much deeper for me, because it's authentic and it's not something that I'm looking for, it's something that came to me. through practice. And I realized that teaching through the years. So this mantra is an invocation for the great Yogi, and actually the father of all knowledge according to the Vedic wisdom. And actually all gods in Hinduism bow to Lord Shiva because he is the ultimate expression of consciousness. So with this spirit, he transforms everything that is not real into consciousness. He's a great destroyer of illusion and darkness. And we are living through times where we need to be more connected with light and with truth more than ever before in history, because this is the time for us to awaken and to meet God face to face. So this is always my prayer behind this chant. May you have a deep connection with the aspect of the divine that is closer to your heart. Shambho Om Namah Shivaya Mahadeva Shambho Om Namah
Mm. So I really want to encourage everybody, please go to danielbellone.com. Go to his music. He offers it for free, but you also have a choice to click buy. Please click buy. And then you can put in, he even gives you the chance to just choose the amount that you want. And that's just such a beautiful way of doing it. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
So everybody come back next week, next Saturday night. Daniel is going to kick off. It's going to be a really beautiful show. I'm going to pull up the poster. Daniel's not on the poster because we didn't know until now he could do it. But I'm going to redo the poster now, Daniel. And it's going to be a really beautiful Saturday Night Alive with Shekinah and Sananda, Adam Apollo, Eden Amadora, Shauna Bluestar, and Daniel. And it's really kind of multicultural, which is quite wonderful. Shekinah is originally from England. Shauna is indigenous. Eden Amadora is Italian. I think Adam might be Italian too. You've got Italian heritage, and so that's quite beautiful. Then Nina Gray, one of our favorite musicians, will also be joining us. So please join us next Saturday night. And remember, everybody, it's a new season. So you do need to go to globalpeacetribe.com to register. And but register so you can join us for the early Zoom room show. It's going to be very special. And again, please go to Daniel's website. Laura Payne writes, I have loved mantra and kirtan for years, and it feels like Christmas getting to meet and learn all about Daniel. Thank you, Scott and Daniel and everyone here. So you've made Christmas for, this has been an early Christmas present for many of our people.
Maybe the background, right?
There you go. There you go. Daniel, I will send you all the information about next week, and we'll get that all locked in. And you will be our after show. I'll have you do an opening song, Ganesha song, and then you'll be the after show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel. Have a beautiful, beautiful week. And remember, everybody, Daniel has demonstrated today what the Sacred Sunday show is all about. We can make any day, any moment sacred by seeing divinity in all, or seeing divinity in what we're looking at, or how we're, and doing it with love. Daniel's music feels so good because it's infused with love, and so I really want to anchor that in, Daniel. Thank you for doing everything, at least my experience of you, doing everything with love. And by infusing it with love, that's why it just is so healing to listen. So may we do whatever we're doing, whether we're doing the dishes or whether we're singing or we're working, let's do it with love.
Thank you so much to everyone and to you, Scott. And I think I would like to, as a final message or reminder, is whatever you do completely, with full attention, it becomes joy. So take the experience of the ant and apply it to doing your dishes or cleaning your room or driving your children somewhere. If you do it completely, if you fully experience it and immerse into what life has to give you right now, if you say yes to this moment, that moment is heaven.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As Matthew writes, the power of now. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Have a beautiful day, everybody, a beautiful week, and we'll see you all next weekend. Take care, Daniel.
Thank you. Bye bye.